take your questions.
Is it a virus?
We don't know.
How does it spread? Is it airborne?
Airborne is a possibility. We don't know.
Is this an international health hazard or a military concern?
Both.
Are these people alive or dead?
Hold them down!
We don't know.
Is that true?
There's a man going around taking names. And he decided...
Welcome. My name is John, and I'm just here to discuss movies on the YT. And if you'd like to join that discussion, go ahead and smash that subscribe button and hit that notification bell as well. And today, I'm starting a new review series on this channel. Hopefully they'll be out on Wednesdays. And it's leading up to the release of the Snyder Cut of Justice League. And that review series is a Zack Snyder review series. And he's a director that I've had somewhat of a complicated relationship with because I love a lot of his work, especially the earlier stuff. But there's one movie in particular and a couple others that there's a couple movies, one in particular that I wasn't a huge fan of. You probably already know what that is if you've seen my DCEU ranking. But nonetheless, I just kind of want to get started and talk about this movie, that being the remake of Dawn of the Dead. So let's get started. And so in Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead, the zombie apocalypse basically breaks out, and this forces this group of strangers together to hide out in this mall, which, for instance, even though this takes place in Milwaukee, it's called the Crossroads Mall. And where I grew up in Omaha, they have a mall called the Crossroads Mall, which is kind of abandoned and creepy in its own right. So it kind of sparks a little bit of that in me when I watch this movie. I just think of that mall. And so first of all, I'm going to start by talking about the action. And now, I know this is a horror movie, but there's a lot of action to be had in this movie, and it's handled really well by Zack Snyder. He has a nice way of handling action, especially like when you get those close-ups of the gunshots and the bullets falling. I love that visual style he brings. But overall, there's still just a lot of great action. You got a nice vehicular action scene with the bus at the end and when it crashes. And you got this great opening sequence when Anna wakes up and her daughter is zombified. And when you get out of the house and you get all of this chaos on screen, and as you go through it with Anna, it's just a nice visual style and just brings you right into the chaos of the movie. And it's just done in such a great way to get the audience engaged into the movie. So moving on to the acting and the characters, this is somewhat of a weaker spot for me. I think the acting is done decent enough. I don't think it's any world-class acting or anything, I think Ving Rhames kind of steals the show for me personally, but one of the things that kind of holds this movie back just a little, I'm still going to give it a pretty good score, spoiler alert for the ending of the review, but one of the things that I don't entirely love about this movie is a couple of the characters I find a little annoying, particularly Ty Burrell's character and Michael Kelly's character. Those two characters just never sat well. They just don't sit well with me, and I find them pretty annoying. I know they're supposed to be abrasive characters, but personally I just feel annoyed by them. So getting into the visuals, you got the nice Zack Snyder visuals in here. Zack Snyder has a really good way of capturing shots in the camera. Sometimes the lighting and colorization can be hit or miss for me. Most of the times it's a hit. In this movie, there's some shadowy type of stuff that I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of. But overall, I think the visuals are great in this movie, except for maybe a couple CGI explosions that I don't think have just aged particularly well. They look very early 2000s CGI, but this is from 2004, so one thing I will say about the visuals is this kind of feels a little more like tamed Zack Snyder. It doesn't have that full, Watchmen 300 BVS type of visual flair to it. It feels a little more tamed for a Zack Snyder movie. And then getting into the story, I love kind of the character moments they built into this. that's kind of what makes this movie work for me. The overall storyline itself is, it's there, and, they make it to the boat and everything, but it's kind of this character moments and scenes that really stick with me with this movie, whether it's with Andre, I believe, and his baby and his pregnant wife, or whether it's when the new group arrives at the mall and they're kind of infected, but they don't realize it, so they have to kill one of them, kind of with the daughter right there. You got these nice, just emotional character moments in this, and I think that part is handled really well. And the overall storyline itself is still pretty good. I think they do a nice job building backgrounds for like 3 characters, which is another somewhat of an issue, but there's a lot of characters and you don't have enough time to build backstories for all of them, and so that's something I can easily forgive. There's one element that I wasn't a big fan of in terms of the story, and you can call it a little nitpicky of me to harp on this, but when you get after the baby, after they have to kill Andre's baby, it kind of feels like they started this romantic relationship between Anna and Michael, and it just feels forced to me personally, and so that's something about it. It just feels forced. There are implications that it might happen earlier on, but it just has always felt forced to me. I don't feel chemistry between those two, and so it sometimes makes the Michael sacrifice at the end a little lackluster to me. It doesn't hit me or impact me as much as I think it should. But overall, I think the story and the character moments themselves are extremely great throughout this movie. And then lastly, the sound. I think this movie has a magnificent soundtrack. I think it's a soundtrack that I don't know if a lot of people might necessarily like, but personally I really enjoyed it. It has one of my all-time favorite opening credit sequences. I'm a big Johnny Cash guy, and you have the man comes around playing with like news snippets and stuff, and I just really love the opening credits of this movie. And even beyond that, and you have all the other songs, and they're placed at like the right moments and everything. That's another thing I've always kind of enjoyed about Zack Snyder, was how he uses soundtracks in some of his movies and the way he uses scores and stuff. And another thing about the sound is, a lot of times in movies like this, whether it's action movies or just any other movie that has a lot of guns and gunfire in them, a lot of times you kind of just get used to it and everything. But with this movie, even though there is quite a lot of gunfire, I feel like whether it's especially with the sound department of the gunfire, you can really hear and feel like every gunshot as it happens. And that's just one thing I kind of notice with this movie and appreciate about it. And so overall, Dawn of the Dead has some great action, especially for a horror movie. You've got some great visuals, you've got some great character moments, and great soundtrack. That being said, there are a few annoying characters, maybe 1 or 2 forced relationships. But overall, it's still a great horror movie, a great zombie movie. I'm not a big zombie guy, but I still love this movie. And so I think Zack Snyder's 2004 remake of Dawn of the Dead deserves a 4. Thanks for watching this video. If you have seen the 2004 Dawn of the Dead remake, go ahead and share your thoughts in the comments down below. I haven't seen the original George Romero one, but if you have, you feel free to tell me whether it's better or worse than this one as well. And if you enjoyed this review and this video, go ahead and smash that thumbs up icon and smash that subscribe button and hit that notification bell as well to stay up to date. I have a Monster Movie Monday review series leading up to Godzilla vs. King Kong. And now I've got this Wednesday review series of Zack Snyder leading up to the Snyder cut of Justice League. And this is going to be an interesting one for me personally, especially when you get towards the end of this review series. And I talk about BVS and the Whedon cut. But overall, I'm going to have a lot of fun making these reviews. And so stay tuned, and I will return next time when I see you again.